Welcome back to episode 5 of Pawns and Patrons. We've just dealt with the pawns and what has been happening to them over the past month, and the taxes that they owed and the lifestyles that they have been living. And there have been some pretty interesting developments there. Some surprises, some not. But now we need to see more information about our patrons. So I want to start first with Anna, Anwar, Sorcerer of the Whispering Cowl. How do you receive communiques? Who do you have bringing you information? Anwar?
I have just plants in all sorts of levels of society. Mostly a lot of street urchins to collect whispers, but then also a fine lady here and there who gives me information in exchange for
your spider web of information.
Uh-huh. So people are always coming in and out of my audience chamber.
Do you have someone that you rely on to give you important messages, or is it more like stuff just filters through a rotating group of people who you barely even recognize? Or
I have an ally, Quenta of the Wine Dark Tresses.
Oh.
And she's a noble woman.
Yes.
And she sometimes, in exchange for me sometimes lending her my power, she lends me knowledge of things going on in noble circles.
Yeah, awesome. So do you have a place where you normally meet with her on a casual social sort of basis?
That's a good question.
Incidentally, let's just take a quick look over at the city great. So this here is Oakwell Hamlet. And then this over here is the city great.
Ooh.
I don't think Anwar prefers to be in public places.
Mm-hmm,
so maybe she goes to pray at the church and he kind of lurks maybe in one of the alcoves, and she'll sit and speak as though she's praying, but she's speaking to Anwar hiding behind one of the pillars.
Yeah. What church do you imagine this being? Is it church to Coronet or a church to Bobugbu Bills?
Probably Bobugbu Bills. I mean, that seems to be the thing.
So last time I said there was something like the path of cults or something like that. Let me take a look at what I described before. The path of cults is a twisty, winding, narrow path that wends its way through the city great that is lined by temples on all sides. There are cults big and small, major established temples, and tiny little storefront confessionals, things like that. So there's doomsday prophets crying on the corners, there's an extortionate priests guild that shakes down temples for donations. Incidentally, that's where a portion of who is your cleric, Jen? Is it Growlabless?
Growlabless, yes.
Yeah, that's where a portion of Growlabless's
Bill.
tithes have gone to, is to satisfying the extortionate priests guild. You make your way to the temple to Bobugbu Bills, which I think in the city great, Bobugbu Bills is a cult that's sort of out of favor. It was once great, so it's in a space that's much larger than the number of people who are in. And the temple of Bobugbu Bills is arrayed in a circle all around a deep black pit of water. And there's just pews, circular pews, ringing this deep black pit of water, supported by huge stone pillars on all sides, and far in the back corner, there's this lurking, hulking statue of Bobugbu Bills, decorated with a similar sort of scattering of gemstones as the ones that Fran pried out of the statue of Bobugbu Bills.
That makes a lot of sense why Anwar likes it, because there's not a lot of people and a lot of space to hide.
Absolutely. And you said Quenta sometimes acts like she's praying, and she delivers you information that way. Okay, awesome. I love this. So you like slip into the shadows and you see Quenta sitting there praying. And like for a while she's like actually honestly, earnestly praying, and then she says, "And one more thing, Bubugbu Bills, I have an important message for you." She says, before I go on, like Anwar, I think like your most important asset is your like information network, right? Have you like tell me about your most recent expansion of your information network? Where have you recently extended your fingers that you previously hadn't? Is it like
Well, my frenemy is Zotella, the Haruspex of the Vexing Skull. And she is a sly woman of great power who pursues goals strangely close to my own. So maybe recently we have kind of a like tenuous frenemy pact that I mean, I assume, what is the Haruspex of the Vexing Skull? That's kind of another like cult type group, right?
That's the name of this sorcerer. That's
okay.
like the moniker. Like you are the of the
Right.
Whispering Cowl.
Yeah.
She's the Haruspex of the Vexing Skull.
So Zotella probably maybe she has ties to the medical community in the city.
Absolutely.
And so I'm now getting information about everyone's like illnesses and any like trends of plague or
Disease
what noble
and
person like got what procedure done, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Lip fillers. That was Valerie's latest, I'm sure.
Yeah. All sorts of fillers.
Yeah. So fantastic. So Quenta is kneeling there in the dark adjacent to this pitch black pool, and Anwar is lurking around one of the nearby pillars, and Quenta says, "And one more thing, Bubugbu Bills, just one," which is like the code that you're listening for. She says, "I know that your servants mean to serve you well, but they are not being entirely faithful to you. Be not angry with them, Bubugbu Bills, for they intend only the best, but it is important that you know that they recently were approached by agents of the Overlord. Your most recent branch of servants has drawn attention to themselves that they otherwise should not have drawn, and the agents of the Overlord are greatly angered with them. I have it on good authority. Oh, Bubugbu Bills. Oh, great Froge of the swamps.
What is it?
I have it on good authority that the Overlord demands appeasement of 100 coins in gold, or else he will strike down upon thy most faithful and most recently acquired servants. I am certain that his forbearance will hold for some period of time, but not for long. I remain your most faithful servant, Quenta."
I give her a nod from the shadows. Do I understand this to mean that the Overlord has noticed me, or that the Overlord has noticed Zotella?
Oh no, she's talking about your, like, in the language of code that you two usually use. It's easy for you to interpret this as meaning that the Overlord has noticed your spies and is displeased with something, whether you've like infiltrated and like muscled out people that he was relying on, or like, if someone's body ended up in a river that it was not the right person, something has gone afoul, and the Overlord has noticed your most recent expansion, and they are not pleased. It sounds like they want, an appeasement of 100 gold coins, or else future badness.
The Overlord is my foe. And it brings me great delight that they are displeased, because it means that I have been working in the right direction. However, this will be a problem if they start to cause trouble for me in my spy network. what I would like to do about this is try to make it seem as though those spies were actually not mine. Maybe they were Zotella's, maybe they were acting on someone else's authority. But how could I like make that seem to be the case? Would I directly send a messenger to the Overlord, or could I like plant some evidence or something like that?
Yeah, so like mechanically, the way that this works is through influence. And basically you would just tell me that you spend 1 influence, and then like that's a very reasonable thing to do. You have a network of spies, you can plant evidence, you can send out whispers, you can like obfuscate the trail leading back to you such that the Overlord is like, oh wait, maybe I got this wrong. Maybe it's Zotella that I need to be mad at instead. And you can just make it happen by spending 1 influence.
That's what I do. I
Awesome.
send my whispering spies out to change the narrative.
Yeah, fantastic. Let's see. I'll bring back over to the patrons page. So let's see. Anwar. I want to like write a little text for like influence. Cool. Yeah. So influence 2, influence 1, influence 1. Wonderful. What's going on here? Yep. Awesome. Then we move on around. So yeah, you send out your spies, and pretty swiftly you hear confirmation that the Overlord has gotten.
And in return, also, my spies quell the nasty rumor that Quenta had that procedure on her backside. Absolutely not true. Make sure everybody knows that.
Laughably false.
Right.
You do hear a little bit of information, actually, coming out of Zotella Haruspex of the Vexing Skull. So like she has a magnificent garden of herbs that she uses to keep like her local hospitals in good supply of healing herbs and things like that. They've gone a little bit to seed, and it seems like she's intensely distracted. It seems like she's searching for something that she either once had or has heard of and wants to find. You're not entirely sure what, some object of power.
I must find out what it is.
Now, moving around the table, Neal, Valerie, Queen of the 7 Schools. So incidentally, the way that I've come up with what has happened to your patrons is I rolled plus your current holdings. So impoverished, of course, gives you a -1 on that roll. So, you know, there are some challenges facing each of you, but that's how. And then like improving your holdings can also improve the results of whatever has happened to your patrons in the last month or so. So
when do we get to spend? Is it?
That's like now. So
Can I spend on holdings before you roll?
I've already rolled. That has already happened. I already know what's going to happen to Petrov.
Damn it.
Valerie, tell me about the latest wealthy noble you have been courting.
So there's this guy named Alex. His family has some like little holdings down at the end of the bay or whatever. And not only is he like super handsome, he's got this like long flowing like golden brown hair that's like always silky and smooth, and he's got this like big strong chest. He must work out all the time, but like his hands are soft and his skin is just like palatable, you know, like, and he's an artist. He like totally works on
detailed.
I know, he's like amazing. I love Alex. He's pretty great. The only problem is that his family is like on par with mine, and I like to marry up, not down or sideways. You know, like how are you supposed to get wealth if you don't like marry someone greater than you and then they have an accident, you know? So like, this guy's kind of great, but I think he might just be a placeholder until I find someone who is actually worthy of my affections. you know, like
Yeah.
really cares about art in the long run, you can just hire an artist. You don't need to date one.
Who do you have as your like letter runner? I'm sure that you must have basically a small army of communicator professionals. But
Of course.
who is like your maitre d' of letters?
Brad, you know, he was the wide receiver when he was in high school, and like
Yeah.
now that he's a little bit older, he just like needs a job. And as we all know, if you're like on this football team in high school, you don't really get a good job later in life. So we needed to like set up Brad with something to do, something that he can use those legs for. And like I do like to watch them pump.
Brad walks up. He has dutifully oiled himself today. He's wearing his tuxedo vest and bow tie, and that's all on the upper body, obviously.
Love it.
And he bows and he says, "What's your honorific? How do people address you, Valerie?" Does he say "my queen"?
Beloved, because I don't
Yeah,
want to infringe on actual queens. So
Sure,
So
can be
good.
a little risky. He says, "Beloved, a communique for you."
thank you.
And he holds out a velvet pillow upon which rests a fairly rough-looking letter. Like this isn't nicely pressed paper. This is something that's not of the kind of communication you generally receive. This is a little lowbrow. You already can tell that you're not going to like the contents of this letter just by looking at it sitting there on your nice pillow.
I will motion him forward so he can bring it to me, and then motion his face forward towards me so I can give him a kiss on the cheek. And then pick up the letter, Miss Alex.
Okay. Let's see. You open the letter, and it contains this.
Oh. Try to read this to everyone.
Yes.
Most noble and esteemed Valerie, queen of the 7 schools, it pains me to write you highlighting our plight, but you know it was a bad year for the fields here in Galway, and your guards have abandoned their posts. Why, I feared greatly until Alex rode through with his train. I beseech him, highlighting the plight of our poverty, and he took a great interest, expressing true surprise that your lands could suffer so. Great news, he has kindly and most benevolently agreed to loan 500 gold coins to the treasury of Galway for us to purchase grain and stocks to make it through the winter, as well as pay the salary of a handful of men-at-arms they left in town. I pray the next time you see Alex, you think of him graciously on our behalf. Sincerely, Talu of Galway. Well, Talu is my frenemy. We don't always get along, but we mostly get along.
She's the alderwoman of one of your villages.
Yeah, she is. So it looks like Alex, if I'm reading this right, the guy I'm seeing, Alex, like totally helped out one of my impoverished people without telling me about it, and like went out of his way to like keep my appearance and my standings high, and didn't even try and take credit for it. Am I understanding this right?
I mean, there's another thing in this letter, which is that your alderwoman exposed to the man you are courting that your lands are quite poor, and that your duties to them are being fulfilled in a mediocre fashion. And
That's true.
She managed to somehow extort from this man you are trying to woo 500 gold coins.
Well, he's a generous man, and I am like so grateful that he would go out of his way to like help me, and not even like say that he didn't tell me about this means like he's got respect for the the public image and the decency of what's going on. And this just really shines brightly on Alex and how great he is. But Talu is definitely trying to like slight me, because I know they have enough grain and everything. Like we've been totally taking care of it for a long time, and that she is trying to like undermine me in such like a backhanded way really shows why she's a frenemy. And I think we're gonna have to do something about Talu. I'm not quite sure what. We're gonna have a meeting. We'll have it over a feast. We'll just like have some wine, see what we come up with. I'll bounce the ideas around between some of my girls, and we're gonna have to do something about her.
Are you sending a summons to Talu?
As long as I don't have to figure out what to say to her right now, then yeah, we're gonna summon her, and then we'll deal with her when she arrives.
Yeah, you can send like a future date summons, like, please Talu, attend me in 2 months' time at such and such, like we must discuss the status of your village, things like that.
Yeah, Talu, come here. I need to talk to you. You have some special information that you're privy to that no one else should know about, and like we need to discuss this. Alex,
Fantastic.
that's so sweet.
Summoned Talu. And you have one influence to spend as you desire. Looks like you've already made a choice.
Yeah, we are definitely going for the nicer holdings.
Fantastic. So, yep, you spend your influence basically like building and expanding on your manor.
Mm-hmm.
And you move your holdings up to mediocre status.
Huh?
Fantastic.
Oh, is this a loan of 500 gold?
Yeah, that is what it says.
Oh. Well, that's okay. We'll just have to have Talu pay for it. If she can't manage her estate very well or the village very well, then clearly she's responsible. If you can't... I hear that, like, in a lower class tavern, if the waitress, like, is short at the end of the day, she has to make up for it with her own tips. And that's kind of what Talu's going to be in here. If she can't keep the village together properly with the funds that I provide her, then she is responsible for personally coming up with the rest of it. So maybe we'll have to send her off with some of our people on some quests to make some money. You might have to get
Totally
her hands dirty.
Very, very reasonable and generous interpretation. Though, of course, every gold coin that Talu pays back to Alex is a gold coin that Talu is not paying to you.
Well, maybe I'll just have to marry Alex then, and then the gold comes to me. But we'll really have to see what 500 gold looks like in the big grand scheme of things. It might not be worth marrying him just to like recoup 500 gold if there's someone better out there. I hear there's this really handsome guy named Steven who's got lots of money and might be single, so like looking into that.
It's always good to have an eye out. Kara, your time has gone uneventfully. Nothing major has occurred in the past month, and you're free to spend your time however you like. Was there anything in particular that you wanted to do or take care of as, the new warden of this prison?
Well, I've been gifted a wing of the prison to kind of run on my own, and I have my prisoners, and I spend a lot of time just like enriching their lives. So I wake up early in the morning. I run the early morning yoga. We get the whole prison up at 5:30 for sunrise yoga. Then we get to cleaning. So we're trying to like clean up, replaster the walls, maybe like expand a little bit, because on all sides of the prison is just like muck. It's like a marsh. Like if it was Jersey, you actually wouldn't be allowed to build there. And so we're trying to reclaim this land.
Sinking.
Yeah, we're kind of sinking slowly into the ground. So it's constantly like this reclamation effort also.
Amazing.
I just want to say JacobH is really getting into this sunrise yoga. But yeah, Redred, not so much. She skips on it, but starts cleaning early.
Redred does not skip on yoga.
Redred
Redra skipped on yoga once, and now Kara personally gets Redra up, and you do the yoga alongside Kara.
Redred despises every moment of it.
Kara is having her standard effect.
Kara, you've got one influence as a consequence of these adventurers having succeeded in one previous mission. How do you want to spend it?
We're going to be increasing these holdings because I just want to be clear. My family is very rich and I'm quite well taken care of. And well, if it's any indication of where I stand with someone like Valerie, it's higher up. But I'm working on my own project, I'm kind of getting my elbows greasy. So, we're going to be constantly like, this looks like a crappy area, but it's not a reflection of the greater Gowler estate.
Fantastic.
How
Go
come
ahead.
Rachel doesn't owe someone 100 gold?
What's that?
How is the determination of like what situation they're in? Because Rachel's like, everything's fine for you. How do you want to spend your stuff? Where mine was like, the Overlord is gonna get you. How's that determined?
So that's so like lots of games have this sort of like complications phase.
Mm-hmm.
Where we would roll 2d6 plus or minus some value. So
Mhm.
all of you, I rolled a 2d6 minus 1. For you, I rolled lower. For Kara, I rolled the middle of the road. And so
the Anna rolls carry over to rolls on your behalf.
It's
I'm so
ridiculous.
sorry.
No, I mean that's what I expected. I just wanted to make sure.
yeah, and so impoverished gives you a -1 to your rolls. Mediocre gives you a +0. Lux gives you +1. Opulent gives you +2. Palatial gives you +3. So like, there's still a chance, even if you're living palatial, that something bad will have happened. And there's still a chance, even if you're impoverished, that something really great will have happened. But
Right.
Kara's middle of the road.
Gotcha.
Kara, go ahead and take the pen tool in roll 20 and mark off the holdings up there that you purchased.
Absolutely.
Then we will move on to Petrov. And Petrov,
Yes.
you, where do you generally hang out most of the time when you are in the burrow?
Oh, level -7.
Level -7. Fantastic. What does level -7 look like?
Oh, nobody knows. Yeah, I'm the only one who gets there. It's me and my beloved cockroaches and my pet ferret, of course.
Excellent. So your pet cockroaches scatter, and your ferret suddenly looks behind him, her, them, with surprise, and does like a couple little binky jumps, kicking their back feet up, and then like arches his back and goes boink, 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 boink. And a beautiful, elegant peacock steps out of the shadows and looks at you, spreads a huge fan of feathers behind it, and then it opens its mouth and it speaks. And it says, "Anwar, darling, it has been too long since you've come to visit me. Please, join me at my gardens and let's have tea. We simply must discuss the latest news of the Overlord's associates.
So
See you soon, Zotala."
It says Petrov, right? Because you said Anwar, so I got confused.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, no,
Zotala's
sorry.
my friend.
It says Petrov, darling.
Well, I'm also friends with Zotola, actually. We picked the same friend. She's shady. Something underground. Makes sense.
We have the same foe too. I feel like an alliance. Is
Yeah, we
coming.
do. We're like, yeah, we see things in a similar way, I think. Oh my god, we're both underground too. Okay, so my character, not at all excited like Jen right now. But I just can see an underground connection happening because we're both digging. All right, maybe we'll have a bridge or something. Okay. Petrov, always a little grumpy, gets up from their chair and slowly makes their way, from the floor -7 to -6 to -5, then takes the secret passage because they don't want to see people that are above -5. And I take the secret exit out that only 3 people know about, my most special and trusted advisors. And,
You're leaving the lair?
well, to go see the person with the peacock.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Zotala lives in the mountains, so it's like a day's journey or something like that. When you arrive, she greets you enthusiastically and says, "Petrov, you're looking so fashionable. I love what you've done with the rags. Please, join me in my gardens for tea." And she's followed around by this like black onyx skull, and it just shouts, "Oh, great, Petrov!"
I say, the tea sounds delicious, but fashion is useless when the end of the world comes.
The skull shouts, "Such a charming conversationalist!" Zotala wanders away into the kitchen portions of her manor to fix tea. She she has like one of her associates escort you into the gardens, which are like a mountainside walled gardens with like covered with brilliant, beautiful wintry blooms. And like there's a heady scent of flowers in the air. It's loomed over by the black spire that Zotala uses as her seclusium. The garden is attended by grasping amorphous blobs that drag flower-patterned watering cans around the garden. So they're like slimes that are just like dragging watering cans around and like tilting them over into plants. And there's like peacocks wandering around the garden preening. Zotala sets down a tea set in front of you and says, "Well, now, darling, I have some very interesting news for you." The vexing skull shouts, "Hey, Zotala, the tea's too hot! Definitely too bitter!" And she says, "Yes, well, tell me, Petrov, how have you been?"
I mean, preparing for the end of the world, as you know. We've been doing quite well on influence, actually. I've recruited some new poor souls that are willing to give everything for the cause.
"Hey, Zotala, Petrov got some new recruits. Did you hear that? He got some new recruits. Where are your new recruits, Zotala?" Zotala just sips her tea. Lovely. And are you prepared for the end of the world?"
Every day, a little bit more.
Well, yes.
Are you?
Oh, not in the slightest. I have so much more to do to prepare for the end of the world. Darling, you know.
Of course you do. I've actually made you a list to help you out.
Zotala, what did you do with the last list Petrov gave you? Did you burn it in the fireplace? Or was that the second to last list Petrov gave you?
I think every time I come with like new things I think that we need for the end of the world, and I kind of advise her to prepare.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, Zotala says, I have news of the Overlord's associates. Are you?
When she says the Overlord, I spit on the ground.
She like sips a tea and then like waits and then spits the tea out on the ground. Darling Petrov, Justikar Snish has been saber rattling against his neighbor Pontifex Rhea. The Overlord is turning a blind eye for now, but we both know that if Uthgarden takes advantage of the strife for a border attack, the Overlord will whip them both into shape. Additionally, the Overlord has apparently sent a few strike teams of knights down to the southeastern border with Mordland, the Frog Kingdom, or I suppose I should say it properly, the Froge Kingdom. Apparently, King Heinrich's court magician, Augusta Ribet, vanished in the swamps, taking some of her tomes with her. Fool woman couldn't spell her way out of a wet paper bag. I say good riddance, and may the truly deserving divide her spoils appropriately. The vexing skull yells, Hey, Zotala, are you truly deserving? Do you really think that? She waves at it and says, Finally, I hear Merchant House Natalie has petitioned once again for the release of their patriarch from prison. Oddly enough, the Overlord's judges consented to hear the case, but I've heard no decision. I can't imagine they'll change their mind. But why I really asked you here, my darling, so, conversation has flowed and tea has flown. Finally, she says, Listen, darling Petrov, I hear you recently came into acquisition of a few new recruits that might have come out from Oakwell's way. Yes?
That might be correct.
They haven't happened to hear anything about that old abandoned keep, have they? You see, it's just, my man Fruelt claims that the whole thing vanished into the hillside before he was able to find a very special ring for me. Sentimental value, just a mere trinket, a bauble, really, but I have been missing it so. Won't you be a gem and find out if anyone's heard anything about it? I'd literally kill to have it back.
I go, Noted.
This is the ring that Babs has? Is that right?
I mean, it could be.
Oh, okay.
It absolutely is.
Okay.
The ring that Babs has is the ring that Fruelt was asking for, that you declined to return to Fruelt.
And Babs is not in my group, right? She's.
I'm
No,
Valerie.
She's one of Valerie's.
Okay.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you wanted with Zotala, Haruspex of the Vexing Skull?
I'd love. Zutola, have you heard of anything that one could do if one wanted to reduce the Overlord's oversight?
Are you meaning to say that you would like to reduce the attention that the Overlord pays to you, or that you would like to reduce his, actual manpower and influence on the ground over you? Or is there a particular problem you're having with the Overlord, darling?
Both. Anything Overlord, really.
Well, now, of course, the Overlord always has spies in all of our organizations. Could always direct some effort into ferreting those out and executing them grimly, or perhaps turning them into slimes to water your garden. Anyway, you could also try to arrange for a group of thugs to find one of his groups of knights in some back alley somewhere and break a couple kneecaps. But of course, if he has sent a strike team of knights down to the Froge Kingdom, it might be worthwhile if you had the extra manpower, or Froge power perhaps, to go and acquire whatever it is that they're looking for down there before they acquire it themselves. Denying the Overlord material goods is always worth everyone's time, darling Patron.
That sounds like a fair quest to me. Thank you for the information, darling.
By all means, remember, they were tracking his court magician, King Heinrich's court magician. Her name is Augusta Rebay. She apparently vanished in the swamps.
Well, then, we shall head there at last.
I wish you the best of luck. Kisses.
One
Isabella
does
screams.
not.
Kisses!
I walk away saying, one does not need luck in surviving the apocalypse. One needs preparation. And then I walk away.
She nods and then clips the head off of a rose in her garden. Fantastic. Then you have 2 influence to spend.
Yeah.
How would you like to spend that?
I'm going to spend 1 on expending my holdings. So making floor -6 better.
Fantastic. And then the other? Are you just going to hold it?
Yeah, I will.
Okay. Excellent. Then I think now is the good point to take our last 5-minute break. And when we come back, we'll swap back over to the ponds. And we now have access to our first quest, which is to go investigate whatever's going on in Swamp Today and secure whatever the Overlord is looking for before the Overlord gets it. So take a little break, come back with a quickness, and then see about a half an hour of pawn play.